This is Kurt Polish with the Madison ModPo group. Today we are going to look at One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. I'm joined by Scott to my immediate right, then Roger and Jim. Why don't I just talk a little bit about Elizabeth Bishop. She was born in 1911, died in 1970, I can't read my handwriting. 79, thank you, Jim. She published in her lifetime only about 101 poems, which is, compared to other poets, a much smaller number than you might think. Since her death, her reputation has actually continued to grow and improve. She's now considered one of the great poets, American poets of the 20th century. In 1956, she won a Pulitzer. 1970, the National Book Award. She went to Vassar College, where she met Marianne Moore, and was her protege for a number of years. And later, she befriended Robert Lowell, and the two of them exchanged significant correspondence and were otherwise colleagues in the profession. She's known for her, among other things, her life was very interesting, and it interweaves with her craft and her poetry. She was a lesbian at a time where she did not want people to know that was the case, for whatever reason, including, though, she did not want to be labeled. She didn't want to be labeled as, oh, she's the feminist poet, or she's, the lesbian poet. That was one piece of it. The other one, those were the major reasons. She also, Robert Lowell, despite being her friend, Elizabeth Bishop recoiled from any type of confessional type poetry. She was very guarded in what she put in her poems. So she, in any event, she traveled, lived in Brazil for 14 years, became romantically involved with Lara de Meda Soares. That relationship tragically ended when Lara committed suicide. Then Elizabeth Bishop ended up moving back to the United States, taught a little bit at Harvard, met a woman named Alice. We won't get into her last name, but Alice was the sort of a caretaker, but her lover until Elizabeth Bishop's death. There was a period, however, just also, by the way, I want to get back to her childhood. In many ways, Elizabeth Bishop's life was a life of losses. Her father died early when she was still a small child. Her mother was committed to a mental institution. She was shipped back and forth between relatives. She had been growing up in Nova Scotia and loved that, had a deep sense of loss when she was sent to her American grandparents. So, and of course, the tragedy with Lada, and with Alice, that relationship at one point was about to break up. In 1975, Alice had declared she was going to get married, which brings us to our poem, because this poem was written in 1975. And one critic says it was written in November 1975. About all the time the things with Alice were going down. It's a characteristic of Elizabeth Bishop. She wrote it quickly, and she quickly, in the sense of she had 17 drafts to make the poem, but by her standards, compared to The Moose, one of her great poems, that took 20 years to write. So 17 drafts slammed into 1 month is pretty good for her. The poem is a villanelle, and it's been called one of the great villanelles in the English language. So it ran in April 1976 in the New Yorker, and then was published as part of her complete poems. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the poem. Maybe I should begin by reading it. One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day. Accept the fluster of lost keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster. Places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I own, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. So I thought we would just go through the poem, maybe just briefly the form of the villanelle. It's 5 stanzas. The first 4 are, each have 3 lines. The first line of the first stanza gets repeated as the last line of the second stanza. The last line of the first stanza gets repeated as the second line of, the last line of the third stanza, etc., etc., until the end where you have 4 lines. The 2 lines, the art of losing isn't hard to master, and then the last line of the first stanza, they get repeated as the last 2 lines of the villanelle. Very tight, closely woven poem. So let's keep in mind this villanelle form and how that might relate to the content as we go through it.
Well, isn't it like repetition in a song to bring
gospel.
home?
It has that
Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
It most certainly has, and then it just, do not go gentle into that good night is another example. And that there's something about the form in English, especially where the poets use meter and rhyme. It just works well. And
The other thing that I would say about it, it's very comic. I mean, she's making very light of
herself.
Especially as we grow older, we tend to
Lose
you know,
things. Yeah.
lose
The keys.
this or that. Not lose them, misplace
Place
them.
them.
And it's simply maddening. It can be really maddening.
I think
And
and
the
there
general-
is humor, but I think the tone shifts at some point. Scott, I think I cut you off. You were about to say
Oh, no,
something.
no.
He lost his glasses yesterday.
No, the cat's always hiding, I think.
Oh, it's the cat's fault. I like that. I'll have to use that. So let's talk about the words, one art, in the title. What art here are we talking about?
The art of losing.
The art of losing.
Yeah, we are talking about that art.
But of course, she really also was referring to the art of poetry, the wordsmith.
And I think the art of living also, because I think the essence of the poem is in the second stanza, which is this, she pinpoints the real loss, the hour badly spent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working over, mulling over the loss.
I also think when she expands it to losing, I lost 2 cities, lovely ones. You know, when you move around a lot, you do. I mean, I've lost San Francisco, but if I'm in San Francisco, I lost New York, or, you know, you have this feeling of, and it's really a feeling of loss, you know, like you really miss the environment that you're not in.
Well, the word art can have several meanings. They're just shades of meaning. One is a quality, production, expression, or realm, a word that's used later, according to aesthetic principles of what is beautiful, etc. And it has to be of more than ordinary significance. It can be a class of objects subject to aesthetic criteria, a branch of learning, a field, genre, or category of art, such as dance is an art. Or it can mean skill.
Skill.
That's where it means here.
She's using it as skill.
Yeah,
Skill in conducting any human activity, such as the master at the art of conversation.
There you go. There
or
you
the
go.
master of
Kurt.
losing.
There you
But
go.
I think art has more than one meaning.
Well,
here.
most words do, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so I.
That's
it's-
probably what you just said, but it's the art of mastering disaster.
Yeah.
Well, and there's some, I really would be interested as we get to the bottom of the poem, whether you think she's mastered disaster or not.
No.
So, the art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost. I love that she attributes intent to things. As if it's not my fault that I lost it. You know, damn things just walk away. So many things seem with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. What do you guys take that to mean? That if things have an intent to be lost, so their loss is no disaster.
Well, usually everything you might lose, you could probably replace in one way or another. However, if someone dies and you lose them, you don't easily replace them. And as you grow older, more and more people get knocked off and you don't replace them. There are no people that are coming into your life, probably. I think she led an increasingly lonely life, and the last line is though it may look like write it like disaster. Well, it looks like disaster. I think it can be disastrous.
What I thought is interesting too is in the second stanza and third stanza, she seems to be addressing an unknown you. Lose something, almost like a command, or lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost keys, and then, almost trying to teach someone that the art of losing isn't hard to master. And then the third stanza is again to this unidentified you. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, and I love the alliteration, and the space and time. Lose farther, lose faster. Places, names, where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster.
It's not a disaster.
So,
Then the switch. So she's now talking in first person. I lost my mother's watch. And look, my last or next to last of 3 left houses, which could be an autobiographical reference. Lost the house in Brazil. It could be a reference to Nova Scotia. But look, my last, next to last of 3 left houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I was teasing out the word master, which is to make oneself master of, to become adept at, to conquer or overcome. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Is it one can become skilled at it?
yeah, exactly.
Or one can overcome it.
I think to be skilled at it.
To be
will
skilled
become
at it.
Easier and easier to master losing. For instance, misplacing names. As we get older, for better or worse, you're going to have certain names that you can't remember, and you get better and better at just shuffling over this sort of senior moments that you start having.
Well, I like the read also of overcome. If you plug that sense in the poem, I think it still works. the art of losing is not too hard to master. That is, it's not too hard to overcome this. So, you know, you're welcome to disagree,
I
but
thought she was being ironic,
yes.
nothing, yeah, that
Yeah.
nothing you can do is gonna stop stuff from disintegrating and going.
But it is gonna be pleasant.
Okay, so she lost her mother's watch. We're in the first person of the fourth stanza. Fifth stanza is again in first person. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, investor, some realms I own.
What does she mean by that?
Realms?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I was looking up different definitions of realm. Bear with me, I will get it.
Well, I would think of a realm like she lived 14 years in Brazil and then she came back. She lost a realm.
Ah,
A realm would be a whole situation that you live in, you know, an environment, you
Yeah.
might say.
Yeah, so realm can mean that, you know, outside of the context of this poem, can mean your kingdom.
mhm.
Yeah,
It can mean whatever you control. So thinking of land, for instance. Those are just two definitions of realm. So if she
2
lost,
rivers, a continent. I miss them. But it wasn't a
but it was
disaster.
a disaster,
Get over it.
yeah.
but then we get to the critical last stanza.
Mm-hmm.
Even losing you, and this is the heartache here,
Right.
and the quick reference to things which I attribute to her lover,
Sure.
the joking voice, a gesture I love. I shan't have lied, and shan't is I'd like to talk about that verb shan't, but it's evident the art of losing's, and then the wording changes, right? The losing's not too hard to master, as opposed to what it's stated in early on, isn't hard to master. It's as if she's almost trying to talk herself into this statement,
Back to Scott's point.
though it may look like, and then it's as if she can't even bring herself to write it, but she commands herself,
Mm-hmm.
write
Because
it,
it's hard. It's painful.
and make it a simile,
Mm-hmm.
to finish the simile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inevitable, right? The poetic structure makes disaster the inevitable thing that's going to happen at the end,
Mm-hmm.
which is disaster. And the critics have been all over the place, not all over the place, but I think there's some disagreement as to, has she mastered disaster, or does disaster have the last word?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get back to the villanelle. Do you think that form works here particularly well?
Oh, I
And
think
if
it's
so,
sure.
Masterful almost,
Sure.
really.
why do you think it works? I couldn't quite catch what each other of you were saying.
Well, because it underlines her basic point that no matter what happens, you just keep going on. It's not the end of the world. Whether it's your mother's watch, or a continent, or 2 rivers, or 3 houses, you know.
Isn't the assertion of form like this over the chaos of loss?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the assertion of such a tight poetic form a triumph of poetry over all that's happened here? Isn't that an assertion that poetry is the way for her?
Well,
Is
I
it a way
don't
for
think
her
it-
to master the
I don't
disaster?
think it brings you very much solace if your best, closest companion commits suicide, or your best and closest companion decides to pull up stakes and get married.
But there's still an assertion of beauty, even in the face of all that triumph. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% consolation.
I don't know.
You think that's a stretch? There's got to be a reason why she called it one art.
Yeah. In this case, it's the art of being able to roll with the punches.
Mhm.
It's not the art of poetry, it's the art of losing and overcoming losing.
I just disagree. I think there's another level here.
What's the other level,
I've
Kurt?
already
Tell us.
described it.
What is
the
it?
one art is it's about poetry in the face of one's disaster in life.
But what does it mean it's about poetry? It's about disaster in life.
It's about the
Using poetry, I
to
agree with you,
master
Kurt.
the
It's
disaster.
using poetry to do that.
To master the disaster.
But what?
I'm not saying that has to be the sole meaning.
No,
but
so
it
you're
is
agreeing
a
with
meaning.
Roger. It's both.
It's a meaning, and
Sure.
I want to bring that out.
Mm-hmm.
And the whimsical tone, and this creates such a sense of irony.
Reminds me of Dorothy Parker for some bizarre.
Yeah,
who?
exactly.
Dorothy
Oh, Dorothy
Parker.
Parker. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
because she, the most unsettling things, and she just rhymes them away.
There you
like
go.
they were nothing.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
Chant. I was reading but it's like
And
future perfect.
But it's also a word that has passed into
It's archaic.
archaic. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's archaic.
Future perfect tense is what chant is, according to critics here. And what does future perfect tense mean?
I will not have lied in the future.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. The way they put it is, it's the past and the future.
That's right.
There's going to be something that happens
Mhm.
way off, but something
Because
happens before that.
There's going to be a loss in the future, Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And English doesn't do a very good job with tenses, but in the Romance languages, you get a very perfect timing
French.
with French.
Yes.
The pluperfect.
Pluperfect, exactly.
But
Absolutely.
why can't you just say, I shall not lie? But why does it have to be, I shan't have lied? Meaning,
Oh, I
if
think.
this
I
comes to
shouldn't
pass.
have
Doesn't it sound better? I mean, I think that's where we're back to poetry
Yeah,
as sound, and so I agree with you. It fits with the form of this poem.
But she could just have easily said, I shall not lie. Or
Well,
I
she
shall
could have
not-
said, under the circumstances that I might have lied, I shall not lie again. I mean, she could have said that, but this is simple and sweet and,
I wonder if it's almost a contemplation of something that might happen,
yeah.
even if I do lose you.
No, actually, it's a product. It's called Shant, and she's selling it on the side.
Oh, you guys are rough. I don't.
What does it mean to you?
I don't have an easy answer.
Yeah.
I think it means that whatever's going down here,
Mm-hmm.
this loss, has not necessarily happened yet.
That's right.
And
It will happen, though.
when and if it does happen,
Mm-hmm.
she will not have lied.
There you go.
The good news for Alice, and I may have mentioned this, is that, I mean, the good news for Elizabeth is Alice didn't go through. Alice came back
Yeah.
to Elizabeth.
But I mean, how much fun was that?
Well,
She, after saying you're going to leave someone high and dry, and
yeah.
then you get them back again. Imagine the suspense every moment. She might think that she might,
Yeah.
find another bow and disappear.
Well, guys, I think I sent this around. This was Adrienne Rich commented on this poem in a poem herself.
Mm.
Boy, you're doing a lot of homework.
Oh yeah, I kind of went crazy, but it was fun. So it's this number 16. Does somebody want to read it? Jim, you want to take us?
Okay. It's true. These last few years, I've lived watching myself in the act of loss, the art of losing, Elizabeth Bishop called it. But for me, no art, only badly done, exercises acts of the heart forced to question its presumptions of in this world. It's mere excitements, acts of the body forced to measure, all instincts nearest pain, acts of parting, trying to let go without giving up. Yes, Elizabeth. A city here, a village there, a sister, comrade, cat, and more. No art to this but anger.
my take on this was, Adrienne Rich is saying, yeah, you lose something, we're not gonna talk about art.
You're gonna
in
get
that
pissed off.
context. Instead, we're not gonna deal with art, we're gonna deal with anger.
That's right. That's what it's about.
But I it's fascinating that this poem was out there.
And notice how dissonant this poem is compared to, you know, this
Good point.
sweet little ditty that I'm not trying to put it down, but Elizabeth Bishop, you could almost sing this.
Well, I
And
really like
this
what
is-
you're saying here.
Yeah.
The structure of the poem is
Yeah.
much different.
Yes.
Just for the record, this particular poem appeared in Your Native Land, Your Life. I think it came out in '86 or so.
Wow.
So that was, I think that was it for me. But
But it's interesting that these two really great women poets
That's right.
would be in touch with each other's work in such a way that they can talk, they can quote from each other and
yeah,
make referential remarks about the other's work.